order. I'm going to start with a roll call vote, just making sure all the members are here or not here. So I'll start with Gillian.
Here.
So Gillian's present. Jeff?
Here.
Jeff is present. Frank? Frank is present. Joel?
Here.
Joel is with us as well, and I'm here as well. So first, we're going to start with a resolution. It's consideration of resolution 2021-08, a resolution declaring that the Board of Zoning Appeals members shall meet on February 4th, 2021, and conduct its essential business by electronic means rather than being required to gather a quorum of the members physically present in the same location, because it is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion made by Gillian. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Frank. So going through the votes one by one, Gillian.
Aye.
Thanks, Gillian. Jeff.
Aye.
Thanks, Jeff. Frank.
Aye.
I have an aye by Frank. Joel.
Aye.
I have an aye by Joel, and I vote aye as well. If you'll bear with me, next we have an announcement regarding limited public access. I'm going to read through this. The Board of Zoning Appeals meeting will limit physical access in the meeting room due to current limitations on public gatherings to prevent further spread of COVID-19 and to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the City of Franklin officials, staff, and citizens. Accommodations have been made to ensure that the public is able to participate in the meeting. The public may participate in the following ways. They can watch the meeting on Franklin TV or the City of Franklin website. They can watch the live stream through the City of Hall Facebook and YouTube accounts. The public may also call in to the meeting by dialing 1-312-626-6799 with a meeting ID of 974-8997-1822 with a password of 126788. I'll repeat those numbers one more time. The main number is going to be 1-312-626-6799. The meeting ID is 974-8997-1822 with a password of 126788. Callers will be unmuted and given the opportunity to comment during the meeting at specific times. And you'll hear staff make an announcement about that, so we'll pause there. Limited viewing will be available in the lobby of City Hall to watch the live video. The public may also email comments to planningintake@franklintn.gov to be provided in full to the BZA and included in the minutes, but not read aloud in their entirety during the meeting. Comments were accepted until noon the day of the meeting. And I know we do have some comments that were emailed to us by staff. So next is consideration of approval of the January 7th, 2021 minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Frank. Do I have a second?
Second.
I think it was a second by Jeff. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, second by Jeff. So going through the votes one by one, Gillian.
Aye.
Thank you, Gillian. Jeff.
Aye.
Thanks, Jeff. Frank.
Aye.
Frank with an aye. Joel.
Aye.
Joel with an aye, and Jonathan, I vote aye as well. Are there any citizen comments at all?
If there are any citizen comments, please unmute yourself or hit *6. No comments.
Okay. Is there a motion to close the public comment?
Motion to close.
Have a motion made by Frank. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second made by Gillian. So going through the votes one by one, Gillian,
Aye. Were you able to hear me on that? Aye.
Somebody wake Jonathan up.
We're having a bit of technical difficulties. Our chair has frozen on screen, so he may leave the meeting and come back in to try to unfreeze.
I think I've rejoined the party. Frozen like an icicle. So let's take a step back. So I had a motion and a second. I think we caught that on film on closing the public comment after the minutes. So let's go back through the votes one more time. Gillian,
Aye.
thank you, Gillian. Jeff,
Aye.
thanks, Jeff. Frank, Frank with an aye as well. Joel,
Aye.
Joel with an aye, and I vote aye as well. So now we're on to item one. It's going to be a variance request for a 6-foot encroachment into the required 50-foot front yard setback and a 4-foot encroachment into the required 30-foot rear yard setback for the property located at 204 Matthew Place. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is located within the Magnolia Place subdivision and is zoned Residential 3 District, or R3. As the property is located in a recorded subdivision, the setbacks on the final plat determine the dimensional standards for the lot. Based on the final plat, the required rear yard setback for the property is 30 feet and the required front yard setback is 50 feet. I'm going to share some images to better illustrate the request here. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
The rear property line is significantly angled, seen here, which results in an angled rear setback line and a triangular shaped building envelope. The paved parking areas located on 2 neighboring properties, so the areas here and here, encroach into the rear yard and the side yard of the subject property. The variance request is for a 6-foot encroachment into the required 50-foot front yards setback and a 4-foot encroachment of a small portion into the required 30-foot rear yards setback for the property located at 204 Matthew Place. The shape of the property is irregular, and the significantly angled rear property line and subsequent rear setback line combined with the required front yard setback results in a triangular building envelope. In one moment, I'm going to share another image. The building envelope is atypical to those located on comparable lots. Staff finds that these conditions amount to an extraordinary and exceptional situation on the property that does not permit development under the ordinance. Due to these reasons, staff finds that the property meets the first criterion for a variance. Compliance with the platted setbacks would result in a limited building envelope that would require a narrow building design substantially different from the homes that characterize the street and the subdivision. Staff finds that the property meets the second criterion for a variance. The proposed variance would allow for a building envelope closer in line with those of surrounding lots and would promote a more transitional appearance to the new construction in relation to the surrounding existing homes. The proposed small triangular encroachment in the rear yard, which is seen here, of 4 feet, does not appear to affect the existing parking area in the rear yard that encroaches onto the property, seen here. The existing parking area encroaching into the side yard, which you can see on the survey here, does not appear to be impacted by this proposal either. While the current building envelope, which is the triangular form here, does include a small portion of the parking area that encroaches into the side yard here. The proposed building footprint with the variance request does not include that parking area. So this image on the left shows the proposed building footprint within the permitted building, within the currently permitted building envelope. Furthermore, the requested front yard encroachment would not result in a building location significantly out of line with the other homes located on the street. The conditions on the lot and the minor nature of the requested encroachment support the rationale that the request would not result in detriment to the public good. Granting the request would promote consistency with Envision Franklin standards for the single-family residential design concept, which states that new buildings along established streets should be designed to be compatible with the predominant character along the street. Staff finds that the request would not impair the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance. Due to these reasons, the third criterion is satisfied. Based on this reasoning, staff recommends approval of the variance based on the criterion that authorize a variance to be established. Thank you.
And I'm on mute. So thank you, Kelly. Next, we'll move to the applicant on this item.
You're moving to what, sir?
We're going to move to you next. If you'd like to comment on the project or kind of give us an overview.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure. Kelly covered it nicely. It's a fairly restrictive building envelope. The measurement for the 50-foot setback in the front is actually based on the plat line, not based on the street. And that plat line, property line, starts 12 feet from the street, so that it initially the proposed, so the triangle starts actually 62 feet from the street. By allowing the extra 6 feet closer, it'd still be over 50 feet of setback from the road. So anyway, I don't know what else, what other kind of issues should I address? I don't want to ramble on about irrelevant stuff.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We can move on. And then if we have questions, we can follow up as well.
Okay.
So next, want to open the public comment. Are there any citizen comments on this item?
If anyone would like to speak on the item, please unmute yourself or hit *6. No public comments.
Okay, do I have a motion to close the public comment?
Make a motion to close the public comment.
Okay, I had a motion made by Frank. First heard him here in the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Couldn't make that up. Okay, second by Joel. Thanks, Joel. So going through the votes one by one, Gillian,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Frank. Frank votes aye. Joel,
Aye.
thanks, Joel, and I vote aye as well. So the public comment is closed. At this point, does the board have any questions? I don't want to kind of have a back and forth debate on the specifics of the item, but I know there's probably some questions as far as site layout and maybe of staff. So if you have questions, this would be the time to ask those now.
Mr. Chairman? I have some things I'd like to ask.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Frank.
Number one. Can you hear me? Okay. Number one, anytime I vote on an item, I try to take two things into consideration strongly. Number one is safety of the citizens of Franklin, Tennessee. Number two is what our vote can mean to the city in the future. I don't want them to have our decision make decisions for them years down the road, which they can do because of the votes that we take. I don't know how, with all these encroachments, especially the one at 600 Matthew Place, how we're going to handle that driveway at 600 Matthew Place. I think that the intent is for this property to be built on and sold to another individual. If this driveway encroaches into that side yard and there's a child hurt on that driveway, who's going to have the liability for that child's injury? Will it be the owner at 204 Matthew Place? Would it be the owner of 600 Alexander Drive? And I cannot see them cutting the driveway up at 600 Alexander Place for any reason. I mean, it's because they'd have no way to get in and out. We have a situation there where we have a two-family residence on that corner lot. Everything that I've researched says that when that subdivision was platted in 1978, it was supposed to be for single-family homes. But the city allowed Magnolia Place Apartments to build about 3 duplexes. I call them duplexes, they call them townhomes, I'm sorry. On those 3 properties located, one of them is on, I think it's Meredith Street, and one of them is on the corner there. The one on Meredith is actually at the end of they're both at the end of a cul-de-sac, so they don't interfere with a corner lot on a major thoroughfare coming through there. That's because Alexander is definitely a cut-through street. And we certainly wouldn't want to wind up with parking there. People use that as access from Hillsborough Road to 96 West and points beyond, and vice versa at the other part of the day. I'd like to ask our city attorney if this is something that could put the city of Franklin in jeopardy, A, for liability if we approve this in any way, whether it be on the private property or the parking area between 600 Alexander and 204 Matthew Place, or if people started parking on that street or backing into that street and had a collision, and somebody might be injured.
May I respond to that?
I'm asking the attorney, sir.
Okay.
Well, I'll give you, thank you for the question. I appreciate that. And I'll give you a sort of interesting answer, maybe. The short answer is you can always be sued by anyone at any time for just about anything. So there's a little bit of difference between can you be sued and would you be found liable. So could you get a lawsuit for something like that, an approval of any kind? Sure, absolutely. Would a judge do anything with that? Would a court do anything with that? That's almost impossible to predict. I will say in terms of state tort liability, the city enjoys certain immunities that would protect the city in that regard. As it relates to federal claims, however, should you end up with a federal claim, those immunities are not as broad. So it's difficult to answer your question with certainty. The short answer, though, is you could always be sued. Would you be found liable? That's difficult to predict. Obviously, if what you're approving were manifestly or patently, obviously unsafe, that's one thing. Where reasonable minds can differ, though, it becomes difficult to predict what a court might or might not do. I hope that answers your question.
Might I also address, because that's not going to be an issue, may I speak to that?
If you could add comments for that, I know on the initial presentation that question didn't come up. So if you could add some comments or
Yeah, I've
facts for us to help.
I've spoken with the owner of 600 about the encroachment onto my property of that, and it's actually not paved, it's gravel. And they have already made plans to create another parking pad in the, I guess it would be the northeast corner of their property. There's room there to place another pad. So that will not be encroaching on my property once we get underway.
Mr. Hathaway, when you say your property, do you own this property?
Yes.
And when did you purchase it, sir?
November.
November.
Correct.
And then it was, 204 was allotted.
I beg your pardon?
204 Matthew Place was allotted when?
I think it was platted earlier in the year, last year around January, I believe, about a year ago. I didn't plat it. 600 Alexander did include the 204 Matthew Place as an entire property. And then it was purchased. The new owner of it platted out what I eventually bought. And then he sold the front portion to someone, and I've spoken to the new owner. And he said he already had plans to remedy the encroachment onto 204. Did that answer what you're asking?
Yes.
So there will not be, anyway, that parking area will no longer encroach onto 204.
So if you wind up with two families on 600 and both parents have vehicles, that would be 4 vehicles. And if they have a teenage child that's driving, that could be 5 or 6 vehicles. Will there be ample parking for all of them?
I don't know how to answer that. That's a pretty those units are really small. I can't imagine a family, but it's theoretically possible to have that many people there. Right now, there's currently 2 single people, one in each of those small units. But I have no idea I have no idea if it'll be enough for six vehicles. And I might point out that all of the driveways, probably with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions in the neighborhood, people all have to back out of their driveways. Currently, what is planned, these folks won't need to back out if there's like 2 or 3 vehicles. I can't speak to 6.
I bought the property at 212 Matthew Place in 1995 and gave it to my daughter in 2008. there's plenty of turnaround parking for several vehicles there without backing onto the street.
Okay, well, the places that I've been looking at, people have to back out. Like the neighbor right next to me, and it's a cul-de-sac there, as you probably, well, you know, I guess.
Sorry to interrupt, but I have no issue with maybe backing into a cul-de-sac as much as I do backing out onto a major thoroughfare like Alexander.
Uh-huh. Well, this access is all backing into the cul-de-sac of Matthew Place. The current parking area and the future parking area would all be backing or driving. Well, right now they don't have to back out. They can turn around and go out. But all would be accessed to the cul-de-sac of Matthew Place.
So you're planning on a cut into Alexander Place? You're planning on a cut into Matthew Place with lot 600 Alexander?
Well, there already is. They already have, I don't know if maybe that drawing didn't show it clearly enough. Currently, 600 Matthew Place, the parking all accesses Matthew Place, that cul-de-sac. And it will continue to do so with what the owner indicates as his plan for that.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is ask other board members, do you have questions? I know we focused on the parking staff. And Kelly, it may be helpful if you could pull up that exhibit again and just keep it on the screen, because I think that is helpful to show. So we've discussed the parking piece. Staff had also addressed the question of whether the encroachments impacted the structures. And I believe that answer is no. If it's not, staff correct me there.
That is correct, Mr. Chair. And as a side note, since parking numbers were brought up, the zoning ordinance requires 2 spaces for a single family residential house.
Okay. Any other questions at all from board members? I want to move on to, I'm ready to entertain a motion if a board member is ready. I'm also, if you have factual questions that you haven't been able to ask those yet, we can get to those now before the motion.
Kelly, I do have one question, please. If it's a two-family residence at 600 Alexander Place, would they be required to have only 2 parking spaces?
If it is a duplex, there is a parking requirement based on the number of bedrooms per unit. So that would be a different requirement than a single family house.
There's 1 bedroom per unit.
Okay, Jeff, I believe you spoke up. I didn't want to cut you off there.
I had another question for Mike. I actually looked at this lot, ironically, way back when, and actually laid a house out on it and came to the same conclusion that you have. I wasn't as concerned about the parking. The setback was obviously a limitation that looks like that should be remedied today. What are you going to do about the rear garage where that guy's built right on your property line? How's he going to get in and out of that right-hand side, Mike? That was a concern of mine.
Sure. I've talked with him, and we'll be fine. I'm not going to cause him any grief, and maybe if we have to formalize it, maybe talk about an easement or something like that. But he's a good guy. I got no reason to mess with him, and it's not going to ruin my life to have that crossing the property line.
I got you. I thought the same thing, actually. I just wondered if you had talked to him. I couldn't believe that he built right on the corner, right on the property line. There would be no way to get in the right-hand side of his garage.
Right. Yeah, he was quite concerned. He hadn't known until the survey was done that he was that close to within inches of the property line.
Yeah, I put a string line up, and I mean, it was right there. And I kind of.
Yeah, no, we'll figure it out. We've talked about it, and I got no need to cause him problems, and I have no, yeah, we'll be fine.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do is entertain a motion. We can have further discussion once we have a motion on the floor. Is there a board member who's ready to make a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the variance request for a 6-foot encroachment into the required 50-foot front yard setback and a 4-foot encroachment into the required 30-foot rear yard setback for the property located at 204 Matthew Place, because the criteria for granting a variance has been satisfied as described in the staff report.
Have a motion made by Jeff. Do I have a second?
Second,
I believe that's a second by Joel. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. So any discussion? I know we've had some comments. I'd like to open it up to board discussion before we take a vote. Okay, seeing no discussion, we'll go through the vote one by one. Gillian?
Aye.
Thank you, Gillian. Jeff?
Aye.
Thank you, Jeff. Frank?
I abstain.
Okay, so Frank is abstaining. Joel?
Aye.
Joel votes aye. And so I guess we're at a tie break, so I guess I'll be the tiebreaker. That's correct. Gillian, Jeff voted yes. Frank is abstaining. Joel voted aye. So I'll vote aye as well on this item. So item passes.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on, it's going to be item number 2. It's a variance request to exceed the maximum number of convenient signs by 3 signs and to place 2 wall signs above the roof line of the building for the property located at 601 Hillsborough Road. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is a former Wendy's restaurant building located within the Independence Square Shopping Center and is zoned Central Commercial District. The property parcel also includes a commercial building with a Mexican restaurant as its current use. Starbucks is the current tenant and is proposing new signage for the building. The zoning ordinance provides standards for size, placement, and quantity for certain sign types, including wall signs and convenience signs. The purpose of the variance request is to permit a signage quantity and placement locations not permitted under these zoning ordinance. The ordinance permits a maximum of 4 convenient signs and requires that the maximum height for wall signs be the main roof line of the uppermost full story. The variance request is to exceed the maximum number of convenient signs by 3 signs and to place 2 wall signs above the roof line of the building for the property located at 601 Hillsborough Road. The subject property is typical in shape, size, and in depth to similar properties located nearby. There are no exceptional topographic conditions or other extraordinary or exceptional situations or conditions on the lot that do not permit development under the zoning ordinance. Due to these reasons, staff finds that the property does not meet the first criterion for a variance. To comply with the zoning ordinance, the proposed wall signage would need to be located several inches lower on the building. From the applicant's perspective, the permitted location for the wall signage does not provide optimal visibility, and the limitation on convenience signage may present issues for customer guidance through the parking lot. The placement of the wall signs below the roof line and the limitation of 4 convenient signs is feasible for the site, but does not reflect the applicant's desire. The BZA must determine whether the minor modification of the placement of the wall signs and the limitation of 4 convenient signs amount to a hardship or practical difficulty for the applicant. The purpose of sign standards is to manage the visual impact of signage within districts for commercial uses. A significant increase in the number of convenience signs and the placement of signage in unpermitted locations on a building that can accommodate signage permitted under the ordinance would result in detriment to the public good and would impair the intent of the zoning ordinance signage standards. Due to these reasons, the third criterion is not satisfied. Based on this reasoning, staff recommends disapproval of the variance requested by the applicant because the applicant has not met the standards required for granting a variance. Thank you.
So next we'll move to the applicant, if you're on.
If the applicant is present, go ahead and unmute yourself or hit *6 on your phone. Kelly, are you familiar with the number for the applicant who is going to call in?
Yes, it's the 864 number.
Oh, you're on mute.
Oops. Yes, I can see the applicant's number. I may perhaps they're having issues unmuting.
Okay, I've requested or asked to unmute over Zoom, but I can't unmute from here, just so everyone knows.
Okay, we'll give it a second here, just in case we're having technical issues and
If the applicant would like, they can leave the meeting and then redial in to see if that would resolve the issue.
Okay, he's having trouble unmuting himself. Hold on. All right. Kelly, what does he hit? *6?
Yes, he can hit *6 on his phone.
It's not working for him. What else can he do?
Is there an unmute button perhaps?
Is there an unmuting button on your phone anywhere? Or, I mean, is there a, let's see. Why don't you try to call in again? Okay, we'll watch for you to call back in. Give it a shot. You all right, buddy? Bye-bye. He's going to try to call back in.
okay, I saw him drop off, so we'll see if that changes when he reappears here.
Frank, don't you fall asleep on us. I'm watching your eyes closed.
All right, so I see the caller rejoined us, still on mute. Okay, now he's unmuted, so go ahead, sir.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can. You're loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. I really appreciate the patience. Okay, so she did a great job, pretty much summing everything up. Starbucks' concern in the twofold on this, starting with the building signage. Their concern is this is a smaller building than what they typically construct. Typically, a roof line for a standard Starbucks building is roughly 15 to 17 feet roof line. This is 12 and a half. Their concern primarily is just visibility, more so on the Siren logo, on the drive-through elevation, more so than the channel letters, but both signs lowered even at 12 and a half feet. Their concern is the visibility issues that would come with that exact location. And also, depending on how the building's constructed during the renovation, there's some concerns about how these signs will be mounted and penetrated into the actual facade if lowered. Sometimes when that happens, you run into issues hitting certain material like I-beams. So that's another concern of theirs if it is lowered, not necessarily just strictly visibility. So they believe if it's sitting at this 12 and a half foot line, there won't be any electrical issues at that location, and mounting will be optimal at that location. Moving on to the convenience signs, that this is becoming a bigger factor with Starbucks, especially as mobile ordering and drive-through becomes a bigger part of their business, not necessarily just inside the store. So they're trying to really control traffic more so than they used to. And with that comes the please pull ahead sign that just helps guide traffic flow of this particular site a little bit better coming off Hillsborough Road, as well as the curbside parking, which is to help foot traffic park in certain areas where they would like to keep that a distance away from other parking or employee parking spots. So that helps control these customers going into the store at a certain location. It helps just control foot and guide traffic a little bit better throughout the lot. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that. So next I'll open it to public comment. Are there any citizen comments?
If there are any citizens on the line, please unmute yourself or hit *6. No citizen comments.
Mr. Chair, staff did receive 2 emailed comments for this item. One spoke in favor of the request and the other spoke against the request. And all of those comments have been passed on to the BZA.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. And I did see those in our packet, so thanks for passing those along to us. Do I have a motion to close the public comment? Have a motion made by Frank. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, I believe, by Gillian. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, second made by Gillian. So going through the votes one by one, Gillian,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Frank. Frank voted aye. Joel.
Aye.
Thanks, Joel. And I vote aye as well. So the public comment is closed. Do I have any questions at all for the applicant or staff from the board? If not, I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I move to follow staff's recommendation to disapprove.
Motion to disapprove made by Frank. Is there a second?
Second.
I believe it's a second by Jeff. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I think-
Second,
go ahead.
second made by Jeff. Any discussion? Sorry, Jeff, to cut you off there.
Well, I was just getting ready to say, you know, I'm very familiar with that site as well. And I don't think there's going to be a problem with your signage directing individuals to that particular location. I think it's going to get all the traffic you could possibly want. I think you're, if anything, the only additional signage that I would think would be required would actually be directing the traffic, because I think you're going to have, you're not going to have a problem with people knowing that there's a Starbucks on that corner. The elevation is such that when you're coming down Hillsborough Road, it's going to be very visual. I don't think you're going to have a problem. So even though we've turned this variance down, I can't imagine it being impeding your business in any manner.
Now, I'll make a comment there as well. So I always struggle on variance requests with signage. You know, I think the third criteria that staff outlined is important. There's a reason why we have the sign standards in Franklin. So I feel that's important to consider with this item as well. So I have a motion, I have a second. So let's go through the votes one by one. Gillian?
Can you clarify for me, Jonathan? If we vote aye, we're voting to turn this down. Is that
That
right?
is correct. If that's correct, we have a motion for disapproval. So an aye vote would be to turn the item down.
Okay, aye.
So Gillian votes aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Jeff votes aye. Frank? Frank voted aye. Joel?
Aye.
Joel votes aye. And I vote aye as well. So that's our last item on the agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, before we adjourn, could I make a staff announcement?
Absolutely. I know what this is. So thanks for stopping me there.
Well, it is with sad news that I announced that this will be Kelly Gibson's last meeting with us. She has accepted a position with the National Trust out of Washington, D.C., and will be leaving us tomorrow. And I just want to thank her for over the past year with her work with the BZA and other commissions. And please join me in giving her a virtual thank you.
Absolutely. Way to go, Kelly. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to work with all of you. And I will miss you all for sure.
I know where I can come to when I visit Washington.
I echo those comments as well. I appreciate your preparation of packets and all here at the meetings. You make my job easy, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Good luck, Kelly.
Thank you.
Yep, good luck.
You're going to be successful, whatever you do, Kelly.
Oh, thank you so much.
Franklin.
So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Jeff. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second by Gillian. Going through the vote one by one. Gillian.
aye.
Thank you, Gillian. Jeff.
Aye.
Jeff votes aye. Frank.
Aye.
Thank you, Frank. Joel.
Aye.
Thanks, Joel. And I vote aye as well. So then that concludes our meeting. Thank you guys for working through technical issues, and I hope everybody has a great February.